Have you ever wondered, what if Joy Boy trained the Straw Hats? How strong would every member become in this timeline? Our story begins exactly like the original. Luffy leaves Fuchsia Village, meets Zoro in Shellstown, frees him from marine custody, and the two of them pick up Nami not long after, though it takes her a while to actually trust either of them. Her own history with Arlong still a wound she isn't ready to share. Usopp joins in Syrup Village once Kuro's plan falls apart, and Sanji comes aboard after Barati, dragging Krieg's defeat and his own stubbornness with him, still insisting for weeks afterward that he's only along for the ride until he finds the All Blue. Chopper is rescued from Drum Island, carrying a lifetime of rejection nobody on this crew has any intention of repeating. Robin joins at the tail end of Alabasta after everything with Crocodile and Vivi, and Skypiea plays out exactly as it does in the original timeline. Enel's ambitions crush the same way they always were, with Luffy walking away victorious after defeating a self-proclaimed god. Water 7 and Enies Lobby unfold with the same devastating weight they always carry. Robin nearly lost, the flag raised, Frankie finally deciding pirates aren't so bad after all and joining the crew once the smoke clears. Thriller Bark brings Brook into the fold, a walking skeleton with a laugh too big for the tragedy underneath it, and by the time the crew reaches Sabaody Archipelago, all 9 of them are finally standing together, every seat filled except one, because Jinbei's story is still a long way off from here. Before we continue, there are a few things to keep in mind. Joy Boy can clone himself into multiple copies. He won't give the Straw Hats any devil fruits, powers, or abilities. He'll only help them enhance the powers they already possess. And Joy Boy won't interfere in fights himself. Now let's begin. Sabaody goes exactly like the original timeline too. And this is the part that hurts to leave unchanged, because Kuma still scatters the crew across the Grand Line, Hancock still develops her complicated feelings for Luffy at Amazon Lily, and Impel Down still happens exactly as brutally as it always did, Luffy tearing through the underground prison with nothing but desperation carrying him forward. And then Marineford happens, and nothing about this timeline softens it. Ace still burns to death in front of his brother. Whitebeard still falls, taking a piece of an entire era down with him. Luffy still breaks, not in the dramatic, cinematic way stories usually show a hero breaking, but in the quiet, hollow way real grief actually works. Spending days unable to speak, unable to eat, unable to understand why this story keeps demanding this exact same price. None of that changes here, and it's worth sitting with why for a second, because some things in this story were never about strength. They were about a world that grinds people down regardless of how hard someone else trains them. And Joy Boy, watching from the shadows where no one could sense his presence, understands that better than anyone alive or dead. He could have shown up sooner. He chooses not to, believing Luffy has to endure this loss on his own before anyone can start building what comes next. It's after the war, in the quiet, grieving stretch of time when Rayleigh would normally be the one to find Luffy on Amazon Lily and offer to teach him, that everything actually starts to diverge. Because this time, it isn't Rayleigh who shows up. It's someone else entirely. Someone whose presence makes even Rayleigh fall silent the moment he senses him. Joy Boy has been watching this crew for longer than any of them realize. Now, if you're wondering how Joy Boy came to Luffy's era, you can watch this video to understand. I've explained everything. Ever since the day their determination began to remind him of the comrades he once sailed beside 800 years ago. And he finally steps forward now, in the wreckage of everything Luffy just lost, and makes an offer. He then separates himself into multiple copies and goes to each of the Straw Hats Islands, and tells them that he's here to train them. Luffy trains the hardest, obviously, and Joy Boy doesn't hold back on him. Observation Haki comes first, the same way it always has for every user before him, learning to feel intention before it becomes action, with Joy Boy walking him through the same drills he once practiced himself on battlefields long lost to history. Armament follows, and from there Joy Boy helps Luffy learn to control the Conqueror's Haki he was already born with, not just as a passive aura that knocks out the weak-willed, but as something he can direct, shape, and gradually learn to channel into his own strikes the way only a handful of people in history ever have. There are nights on that island where Luffy simply can't handle the pressure of it, where his own will overwhelms his control and knocks him flat on his back, gasping, and Joy Boy just watches patiently. You see Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd get refined until they cost him almost nothing to use, and by the time the 2 years are close to ending, Luffy begins developing an early, unstable version of what will eventually become Gear 4th. Built not out of desperation, but out of a complete understanding of his own body, Haki, and everything Joy Boy has taught him. Zoro trains beside Mihawk in every version of this story, but this time Joy Boy trains him personally too. And Mihawk, of all people, doesn't object. recognizing a presence worthy of his respect. The two of them push Zoro past where Mihawk alone ever could, with Joy Boy teaching him to coat his blades in armament haki with a precision that lets even ordinary steel cut like a legendary blade, and slowly drawing out the Conqueror's haki that had always lain dormant within him. There's a night where Zoro, exhausted and half delirious from training, unconsciously knocks out an entire flock of birds circling the island just by losing his temper, drawing a rare laugh from Mihawk. By the end of it, Zoro isn't just faster and stronger. He's started sensing danger the way Luffy does, an early flicker of observation haki that even Mihawk admits he never expected to see this soon. Nami still makes her way to Weatheria, still spends her 2 years buried in books about wind patterns and pressure systems that most sailors never bother learning, but Joy Boy doesn't add a devil fruit or brute strength, it's observation haki. Rather than replacing the instincts she spent her whole life developing, it sharpens them, allowing her to combine her extraordinary understanding of the ocean and the sky with haki itself. By the time she leaves, she can sense a storm forming before the first clouds gather and react to incoming attacks with the same uncanny instinct she has always used to read a coming squall. Usopp spends his 2 years in the Boyan archipelago just like in the original, training with Heracles, refining his aim, and learning to grow the pop green seeds into genuine battlefield weapons. But where, in the original timeline, his observation haki doesn't properly awaken until years later during a desperate moment in Dressrosa, here Joy Boy helps awaken that potential during the time skip, guiding him through the same principles he taught Luffy and Zoro, until Usopp can finally sense the path of a shot before he even pulls the trigger. Sanji still ends up in Kamabaka Kingdom, still resists every single day of it, and still comes out the other side stronger for reasons he'll never fully admit out loud. Ivankov's training remains the same, but Joy Boy adds armament haki to the mix earlier than canon ever allowed, allowing Sanji to use Diablo Jambe with far greater control and far less strain on his body. By the end, his kicks carry an edge that feels less like fire and more like judgment. Chopper spends his time in the Torino Kingdom, just like in the original story, deepening his medical knowledge and refining his Rumble Ball transformations. But Joy Boy takes a personal interest in his Monster Point, the form that's always been more of a curse than a gift, tearing through his own body every time he uses it. Working with him directly, Joy Boy helps him master the transformation itself while teaching him to combine armament haki with it, stabilizing Monster Point just enough that Chopper can hold the form without immediately losing himself to it. Robin's Road takes her through Tequila Wolf and into the arms of the Revolutionary Army at Baltigo the same way it always has. And it's there, surrounded by people who've spent their whole lives fighting a system stacked against them, that Joy Boy adds real offensive weight to a fighting style that's always leaned more toward information than impact. As Koala teaches her the fundamentals of Fishman karate, Joy Boy helps her weave armament haki into those techniques, allowing her sprouted limbs to strike with far greater force while preserving the precision that has always defined her fighting style, turning her Hana Hana no Mi into something that can genuinely stand its ground in a real fight. Frankie ends up on Karakuri Island exactly the way canon remembers, discovering the remains of Vegapunk's old laboratory and rebuilding himself piece by piece into something stronger. Joy Boy's contribution here is less about new inventions and more about discipline, teaching Frankie the fundamentals of armament haki and how to coat even the metal parts of his cyborg body during combat, making every punch and every weapon hit even harder. Brook spends his 2 years bouncing between Namakura Island and an unexpected career as a musical sensation, the same strange, wonderful detour his life always takes. But underneath the fame, Joy Boy works with him privately on the deeper edges of the Yomi Yomi no Mi, teaching him to separate his soul from his body with far greater control than before, and to channel the chilling power of the underworld through his blade with a mastery that makes even seasoned swordsmen uneasy standing across from him. 2 years pass, and when the crew finally reunites at Sabaody Archipelago, it isn't 9 separate stories stitched back together. It's 9 people who trained under the same mentor, who understand each other's growth because they watched it happen in real time. There's no awkward reintroduction phase, no moment where someone has to prove how much they've changed, because they already know, the same way soldiers who train together always know without needing to ask. The reunion feels different this time too, less chaotic, less scattered, more like a crew that already knows exactly what it's capable of before the fighting even starts. When the fake Straw Hats and the Marines create confusion around the archipelago, the real crew hardly treats it like a battle at all. Luffy's Conqueror's haki drops countless enemies before a punch is ever thrown. Zoro and Sanji erase a pacifista together with a single coordinated exchange that shocks every Marine watching. Frankie's upgraded weapons tear through anything left standing. Robin restrains entire groups before they can react. Brook's blade flashes faster than the eye can follow. Chopper effortlessly controls Monster Point without losing himself for even a second. Nami's weather techniques trap enemies before they know they're surrounded, and Usopp's observation haki lets every shot find its mark from impossible distances. By the time the Thousand Sunny sails away, the world already realizes these aren't simply the Straw Hats returning after 2 years. They're a crew reborn. Fishman Island unfolds with a crew that barely needs to break a sweat. Luffy's Conqueror's haki alone drops thousands of the new Fishman pirates before Hody's forces even understand what's happening. But this time, the rest of the battlefield belongs to the crew as much as their captain. Zoro overwhelms Hody beneath the sea with swordsmanship refined through countless hours, forcing the Fishman to realize the gap between them almost immediately. Sanji sends Watatsumi crashing across the battlefield with kicks coated in perfectly controlled armament haki, while Frankie's overwhelming firepower and haki-enhanced strikes dismantle Ikaros long before he becomes a serious threat. Robin's Fishman karate and armament haki transform every giant limb she sprouts into a devastating weapon. Brook freezes Zio before finishing him with elegant precision. Chopper's completely stabilized Monster Point tears through enemy ranks while still leaving him calm enough to protect civilians. Nami uses her sharpened observation haki alongside her mastery of the weather to control the battlefield itself, and Usopp's sniping repeatedly saves allies from attacks they never even saw coming. By the time Luffy finally defeats Hody, it doesn't feel like one pirate carrying his crew anymore. It feels like an Emperor's crew crushing an army together. Punk Hazard and the alliance with Law form the same way they always have, Caesar's operation collapsing quickly under the combined weight of a crew this much sharper than before. The children are rescued even faster as Chopper's medical knowledge keeps them stable while Robin and Nami protect them from Caesar's men. Zoro cuts down every obstacle standing between the alliance and their objective. Brook freezes entire groups of enemies before they can regroup. Frankie's overwhelming strength tears through the laboratory's defenses, and Usopp's impossible accuracy prevents Caesar's subordinates from ever surrounding the crew. Sanji's refined armament haki allows him to pressure Virgo far more effectively than before, buying valuable time for Law's plan to unfold, while Luffy defeats Caesar with such overwhelming confidence that the mad scientist never truly believes he had a chance to begin with. The alliance with Law is formed exactly as history remembers, but this time Law understands almost immediately that he isn't working beside one extraordinary pirate, he's working beside an extraordinary crew. Dressrosa becomes the real proving ground. While Luffy drives straight toward Doflamingo, the rest of the crew tears apart the Don Quixote family piece by piece. Zoro cuts through Pika with even greater ease than before, his mastery of armament haki turning every slash into a threat capable of splitting mountains. Frankie's battle with Senor Pink becomes a showcase of raw power and respect between two men unwilling to back down, ending faster once haki begins reinforcing every devastating blow. Robin protects Rebecca without ever losing control of the battlefield. Brook and Nami keep Doflamingo's officers from overwhelming the alliance, and Usopp's observation haki allows him to pull off an even more unbelievable sniper shot than before, saving Luffy's allies from across the island while finally believing in his own strength as much as everyone else already does. Only then does Luffy stand before Doflamingo. Arrogant as ever, the Heavenly Demon doesn't take the threat seriously until Luffy is already standing in front of him, and the fight that follows carries none of the desperation the original timeline needed to win it. Luffy reads every string, every shift in Doflamingo's stance moments before it happens, Gear 4th flowing with far greater control and far less strain than before. Doflamingo still proves why he ruled Dressrosa through fear for so many years, but against a Luffy tempered by Joy Boy himself, the outcome is never truly in doubt. Law survives here too, backup finally arriving in time to keep him from making the same lonely sacrifice he almost made before, and Sabo's reveal happens exactly the way it always should have. Brothers who never should have been separated finally finding each other again. Zoo and Whole Cake Island play out with the same essential shape, though the difference in this timeline is impossible to ignore. Jack's assault on Zoo is driven back faster and with far less collateral damage, the Straw Hats joining the Minks almost the moment they arrive instead of spending precious time recovering. Chopper's medical expertise allows the poison victims to be treated more quickly than before. Robin helps uncover the Kozuki clan's history alongside the Minks with even greater efficiency, while Frankie and Usopp work together to repair the damage left behind by the Beast's pirates. The Samurai and Minks still swear their loyalty exactly as they always have, but this time they're looking at a crew whose unity is every bit as intimidating as its captain. Whole Cake Island turns into the sharpest test yet. While Luffy challenges Katakuri, the rest of the crew spends every second proving why Joy Boy refused to let them train apart. Katakuri's future sight, the greatest observation haki Luffy has faced so far, finally meets a Luffy whose own observation haki has grown enough to turn that advantage into a genuine contest instead of a one-sided demonstration. Their clash stretches on, close and brutal, both of them landing blows neither expected the other to see coming, each gradually earning the other's respect until the battle ends with something closer to mutual understanding than a simple victory. Elsewhere, Sanji refuses to let his family carry the burden alone, his refined armament and observation haki allowing him to protect both the Straw Hats and the Vinsmokes with a calm confidence he never possessed before. Brook once again infiltrates Big Mom's treasure room, but this time his mastery over the Yomi Yomi no Mi and his sharpened swordsmanship allow him to steal copies of the Road Poneglyph with even greater precision while holding his own against enemies that once overwhelmed him. Nami combines Zeus with her unmatched understanding of the weather, repeatedly disrupting Big Mom's forces and creating escape routes only she could see. Chopper's complete control over Monster Point lets him protect the Thousand Sunny without risking his own mind, while simultaneously treating wounded allies whenever the battle briefly slows. Jinbei commands the sea itself, shielding the Sunny from impossible odds with the calm confidence of a veteran who finally has a crew worth staking his life on. And even Usopp finds opportunities to support the escape from impossible distances, his observation haki allowing him to cover allies long before danger ever reaches them. By the time the crew finally escapes Tado Land, Big Mom's empire has still survived, but it has been forced to acknowledge something it never expected, that defeating the Straw Hats means defeating every single one of them, not simply overcoming their captain. Sanji's rescue still costs this family plenty emotionally, but far less physically than it once did, and Jinbei finally commits himself to the Straw Hats exactly as history always intended, even if his full reunion still waits until Wano. Which brings us to Wano, the arc this entire journey has been building toward. The raid on Onigashima unfolds with a crew that no longer feels like 9 individuals hoping to survive together, but something closer to a single unit built by the same hand. Every battlefield across the island becomes proof of what 2 years under Joy Boy truly created. Zoro's blade work carries an edge that wasn't there in the original timeline, and during his battle against King, he fully embraces the Conqueror's haki that had long slept within him, his blackened blades finally overwhelming the right hand of the world's strongest creature. Sanji's battle against Queen ends with absolute control over both his enhanced body and his haki, every kick landing with devastating precision while protecting everyone behind him. Robin's Fishman Karate, strengthened by armament haki, crushes Black Maria's overwhelming web of attacks, while Brook stands beside her cutting down wave after wave of enemies before turning his soul-powered blade against anyone who still dares pursue them. Frankie's armament-enhanced strikes batter Sasaki into defeat with overwhelming force. Chopper holds Monster Point for extended periods without surrendering to its rage while curing the Ice Oni plague at the same time. Nami and Zeus repeatedly change the flow of the battlefield before finally bringing Ulti down with power worthy of the New World. Usopp's observation, haki saves countless allies through impossible shots that arrive exactly when they're needed most. And Jinbei defeats Who's Who with the quiet confidence of a warrior who has finally found the family he was searching for. By the time every battlefield across Onigashima begins falling silent, Kaido's army has already been broken not by one extraordinary pirate, but by an entire crew that spent 2 years becoming something the world has never seen before. Luffy's clash with Kaido stretches on exactly as brutally as it always has, because Kaido earned that title for a reason no amount of training fully erases, trading blow for blow across a rooftop that's slowly collapsing under both of them. Even after everything Joy Boy spent 2 years teaching him, Luffy discovers the same truth everyone before him learned the hard way. Defeating the strongest creature in the world demands more than strength alone. Kaido continues forcing him beyond every limit he thought he possessed, refusing to fall even as Conqueror's haki shakes the skies above Wano. Then, just as fate always intended, the power sleeping inside the human fruit, model Nika, finally awakens. Joy Boy doesn't interfere. He simply watches in silence, recognizing the heartbeat he once carried himself. This time, though, Gear 5th doesn't awaken inside a fighter desperately searching for answers. It awakens inside someone who already understands haki, already understands freedom, and already understands exactly what Joy Boy spent 2 years trying to teach him. The battle changes instantly. Kaido laughs louder than ever before, thrilled that someone has finally reached the level where he can fight without holding anything back. The rooftop becomes a battlefield unlike anything the world has seen in centuries. Every clash of Conqueror's haki splitting the heavens while the island itself trembles beneath them. Below, every member of the Straw Hat crew continues standing their ground, refusing to let a single beast pirate interfere with the fight above. They don't need to rescue their captain anymore. They trust him completely, just as he trusts every one of them. When Luffy finally gathers everything Joy Boy taught him together with the limitless freedom of Gear 5th. His final attack crashes into Kaido with overwhelming force, ending the reign of the world's strongest creature exactly as history always demanded, but with far less desperation than before because he never had to carry the burden alone. Standing in the wreckage of Onigashima, watching the crew he trained stand together, bruised but unbroken, Joy Boy feels something settle in his chest that hasn't settled in 800 years. He came to this era believing he was searching for one successor. Instead, he found something far greater. Luffy may have inherited the will to become the next Joy Boy, but he could never have reached that future without the people standing beside him. Zoro's unshakable loyalty, Nami's unwavering faith, Usopp's courage, Sanji's selfless heart, Chopper's compassion, Robin's determination to uncover the truth, Frankie's impossible dreams, Brook's promise kept across half a century, and Jinbe's quiet wisdom had become every bit as important as the strength of their captain. The legacy he left behind was never meant to rest on one person alone. It was always meant to be carried by people who chose each other, the same way kingdoms, armies, or even great men never could. As the smoke clears over Wano and dawn finally breaks across the land, Joy Boy quietly steps back. He doesn't need to say goodbye. He can already see it in their eyes. They no longer need him standing in front of them to remember what he taught them. Leaving behind 10 pirates who are no longer just a crew but a family capable of changing the world together, Joy Boy smiles one last time before disappearing into history once again, finally certain that the future he failed to protect 800 years ago has found the people worthy of carrying it forward.